Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far, and I hope you're motivated to do some English right now. Today, let's talk about the past. We already know a few ways to talk about events that happened in the past. Pause the video and write down this sentence. Elizabeth I was Queen of England. After you've written that down, colour the verb yellow and think about which tense it is. If your sentence now looks like this, and you said that the verb is in the simple past, you would be correct. So far, so good. But can you also do it when there is more than one verb in a sentence? Take a look at this sentence, then pause the video and write it down. Elizabeth I was Queen of England after Queen Mary I had died. Now we have two verbs, was and had died. These two. For one of them, we already know the tense. Was is, of course, the simple past. But the other tense, that's the one I want to talk about today. After Queen Mary had died, the verb in this half of the sentence has two parts, had and died. A verb that is made with had and the past participle, died in this case, is called the past perfect. Because we will have to work with the past participle a lot today, before we move on, make sure you remember how to make it. Okay, looks like you remember the past participle. Be careful not to mix the two up. The past perfect is a tense, and the past participle is a verb form. Please pause the video now and write down this rule into the grammar section of your folder. The past perfect is a verb tense that describes something that happened before something else in the past. We make it by combining had with the past participle or the third form of the verb. So in this case, Elizabeth I was Queen of England after Queen Mary I had died. First, Queen Mary died, and then after that, Elizabeth I became Queen. The part of the sentence that has the past perfect, the had plus past participle, is always the thing that happened first. It doesn't matter if it comes first or last in the sentence. The sentence, after Queen Mary I had died, Elizabeth I was the Queen of England, would mean the same thing as the sentence you see here before you. The only thing that matters is that the part of the sentence that has the past perfect in it, the had plus past participle, that is the part that happened first. Now, let's see if you've got that. Take the following test to check if you know which part of the sentence came before and which part of the sentence came after. Good job, you! Let's have a look at the text that we read last lesson. The text on page 68. It is called He Hadn't Finished His Game. Pause the video and find at least 5 more sentences that use the past perfect. Write them down like this. I found this one in line 10, and it is, life was boring back then because they hadn't invented all the fun things yet. Colour the verb in the past perfect yellow. Here, that's hadn't invented. Then write earlier under the event that happened before, and later under the event that happened later. In this case, nobody who came before Elizabeth's time had invented anything fun. So, when Elizabeth was queen, life was boring. Pause the video now and do the same thing with at least 5 sentences that you will find in the text. Okay, I believe you. You can spot all of those past perfect forms in a text. Nothing gets by you. But now let's see if you can make the past perfect by yourself. Right on, you're on a good way. But, of course, the difficult part is to know which event happened earlier and which one happened later. The event that happens earlier needs the past perfect, and the event that happens later needs the normal simple past. In our example, Elizabeth I was the Queen of England after Queen Mary I had died. That means Elizabeth becoming the Queen happened after Mary dying. First Mary dies, then Elizabeth is Queen. So the sentence part with Elizabeth needs the simple past because it happened later, while the sentence part with Mary, the earlier part, needs the past perfect. Earlier, past perfect, later, simple past. If you think that's totally clear to me, take this test to check yourself. All right, that was a bit more difficult, wasn't it? You may have noticed that many of these sentences use these signal words, which are actually linking words. After, as soon as, but, because, when, then, and so. They are linking words which are used to connect the two parts of one sentence, the earlier and the later part, or to connect the sentences in a story to each other. Have a look at exercise 6 on page 70 in your book. Here, you will have to do 3 things. First, you have to put the pictures that describe the life of Francis Drake into the correct order. There are some phrases and years under every picture that can help you find out what happened when. Step 2 is to look at the different events under every picture and decide if they happened earlier or later than the other events under each picture. And then, as a third step, write down Francis Drake's story. Make sentences with the words and phrases under each picture and connect them with these linking words. You also see them on the right side of the exercise. Let's start by putting the pictures in the correct order. As you can see, I made a grid for all 3 steps. The first step is concerned with the letter. You will see that every picture of Sir Francis Drake's story has a letter with it. And this is the first picture, the one with the letter D. The other ones, as you can see, are still covered. Pause the video and find out the correct order. You can make a grid like this one, but you don't have to. If this is the order in which you put the pictures, you're correct. The story starts at picture D, when Drake was a young boy. In picture F, he goes on his first big adventure to America. While he is in America, in picture B, the Spanish attack his ships and he starts hating them. Because of what happened in picture B, Drake sails around the world in picture E and steals gold from the Spanish. He then returns to England in picture A in 1580. And in 1588, in picture C, his triumph over the Spanish Armada makes him a national hero. Step 2 is to look at the different events under every picture and decide if they happened earlier or later than the other events under the picture. For example, in picture D, the first bit of the story, the event of seeing many ships as a boy happens earlier in Drake's life. And because of this event, he wants to have his own adventures as he grows up later. Pause the video again and look at the events under every picture. What happens earlier and what happens later? Careful! Some pictures have more than 2 events, so more than 2 events can happen. Maybe 2 or 3 events will happen earlier, or maybe they will happen later. Pause the video now. Okay, so this is what your grid, if you made a grid, should look like now. In picture D, of course, we start with the early event of seeing many ships and the later event of wanting to have your own adventures. In picture F, he first had to capture the slaves so that he could later go to America and sell them. In picture B, he only hated the Spanish, and he never forget what they did to him, because before that, the Spanish attacked his ships and made him angry. In E, after he had sailed around the world and stolen all of the gold or silver from the Spanish ships, they then hated him. He returned to England, and after that, he went to the Queen. He wasted no time, and he gave the Queen his treasure. And in picture C, we see that after he defeated the Spanish Armada, he then made England feel safe and was a national hero because of that. Now, let's finish off by writing down Francis Drake's story. Make sentences with the words and phrases under each picture and connect them with the linking words you see on the right-hand side. The beginning of the story goes like this. After Francis Drake had seen so many ships as a boy, he wanted to have his own adventures at sea. Then, on his first big... Pause the video now and try to make some sentences with the past perfect and simple past. You can look and see which events happened earlier and which events happened later. That might help you. Pause the video now. Whew, that was tricky, wasn't it? Look at this grid and see if you have a story that looks like this. Of course, you have maybe used different linking words at different points in the story, so don't get a shock if they don't match. But this is the story the way I wrote it down. After Francis Drake had seen so many ships as a boy, he wanted to have his own adventures at sea. Then, on his first big adventure, he went to America and sold slaves that he had captured in America before. But in America, the Spanish had attacked his ships, which had made him very angry, and he never forgot that. So, in 1577, he had sailed around the world and had stolen lots of gold and silver from Spanish ships, and the Spanish hated him. As soon as he had returned to England, he wasted no time and gave the Queen his treasure, which made her very happy. Because he had defeated the Spanish Armada in 1588, England felt safe again, and he was a national hero. Wow, what an exciting life, right? Now it's your turn. Is your life exciting? Write a story about something that happened in your life. Use the past perfect at least 5 times in your story to say that something had happened earlier than something else in your story. Then upload your results to Moodle. If you still have some time left and you want to make sure that you've really gotten all of the rules and everything important about the past perfect, you can take the following test to check yourself. I thank you very much for your attention. Please know that if you have any other questions, you can text me, you can write me an email, you can ask me if you need anything. Otherwise, you are now a past perfect expert, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.